The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Raisha Sehgal.
And I'm Hem Kaur. And on the show today, Iranian officials met in Tehran with representatives of the Axis of Resistance. This to discuss the retaliation for the deaths of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, reaffirmed his commitment to Israel's security. We'll get you all the details on this on the show today.
Right. Also on World DNA, we'll get you a story about the historic prisoner swap between Russia and the West. How did this prisoner swap take place, which is the biggest since the Cold War era? All that and a lot more lined up on World DNA. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
Reports say Iran and its armed groups prepare coordinated action to deter Israel, averting all-out war after killings of top Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. Iranian officials met in Tehran to discuss retaliation.
Joe Biden speaks with Netanyahu and discuss efforts to defend Israel against Iran and its proxies. White House announces new military deployments to support Israel's defense against the threats.
Trump pushes again for hush money case judge to recuse himself, citing his daughter's work for Vice President Kamala Harris. Justice Juan Merchant previously denied recusal request by Trump's lawyers.
Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine and its partners are working on new agreements over international security, stresses that the agreements will be signed in August.
Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado in hiding after being threatened with arrest, calls for protests in every city on Saturday to denounce disputed re-election of President Maduro.
American gymnast Simone Biles continues her redemption tour with a second gold of the Paris Games. She wins the women's all-round title to take her overall tally at the Paris Games to 6 gold medals. And our top focus in WION right now. After the killing of top Hamas and Hezbollah leaders, Iran and the armed groups backed by it are now preparing for a coordinated action.
Well, according to reports, the action is to deter Israel, but at the same time avert an all-out war in West Asia. This after Iranian officials met representatives of the Axis of Resistance, a loose alliance of the groups hostile to Israel.
Given the situation, Israel has reached out to the U.S. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to U.S. President Joe Biden, and during the call, Biden reaffirmed Washington's commitment to Tel Aviv. Biden and Netanyahu discussed efforts to support Israel's defense from threats, including against ballistic missiles and drones. The U.S. has committed new military deployments to help defend Israel at the moment.
Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, is on high alert. Its spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, in a press conference, cited recent incidents to prove that Israel knows how to deal with threats in defense, also how to respond with a mighty attack.
The statement came after Hezbollah launched a rocket attack on northern Israel. The attack was in response to an Israeli airstrike that killed 4 in South Lebanon. Earlier today, Hezbollah confirmed its action through a statement.
Also, Hezbollah leader denied that the group had directly
As for the incident of Majd al-Shams, the missile hit the town. We categorically denied our responsibility of this incident, and we have the courage that if we bombed any place, we take responsibility, even if it was by mistake.
As this rocket containing 53 kilograms of explosives hit the field. Hezbollah claimed they were not responsible for the attacks. This is a lie. The evidence is irrefutable. The rocket itself.
Besides the attack on Beirut that killed Shukra, Israeli army has denied carrying out any other strike in West Asia, hinting at the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the chief of Hamas in Tehran. Iran and Hamas have blamed Netanyahu for his killing.
We attacked on Tuesday night in Lebanon and eliminated Fuad Shukr in a precise air raid. I want to make one thing clear. There were no other Israeli airstrikes, missile strikes or drone strikes that night anywhere in the Middle East. I won't say anything else.
Meanwhile, ahead of Haniyeh's funeral and burial today, his body arrived in Doha from Iran. A public funeral was held in Iranian capital yesterday, with Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei leading prayers for him.
Shifting our focus, Russia and Western countries have exchanged 26 high-profile international prisoners in the biggest swap of its kind after the Cold War.
Right, him. Turkey mediated the landmark exercise. U.S. President Joe Biden hailed the prisoner swap with Russia and said that this was a feat of diplomacy. Take a look.
Moments ago, the families and I were able to speak to them on the telephone from the Oval Office. They're out of Russia. Earlier today, they were flown to Turkey. and soon they'll be wheels up on their way home to see their families. This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's a relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally, and I'll thank them again.
Meanwhile, a hostage and wrongful detainee flag was hoisted beneath the American flag at the White House on Thursday. The flag was hoisted for the first time ever in celebration.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met with the released prisoners who arrived in Moscow on Thursday. He congratulated 8 Russian citizens who've been released as part of the exchange deal, adding that of those who have been released will be conferred with state honors.
First of all, I want to congratulate you all on your return to your motherland. Now, I want to address those of you who are directly related to military service. I want to thank you for your loyalty to your oath, to your duty, and to your motherland, which has never forgotten about you for a minute. And here you are home.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met with the released detainees who arrived in Germany on Thursday. He said that the release came as a relief for prisoners freed from Russia and Belarus, who were not expecting for any kind of exchange to happen now and were scared for their lives. Scholz further added that the difficult swap had saved lives.
The prisoner exchange ceremony at the Ankara airport saw some milestone swaps designed to build bridges between Russia and the West. Turkish officials said Russia has released U.S. journalist Evan Gershkovich and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan. On the other side, Germany is reported to have released Russian Vadim Karsakov, who was in prison for killing a former Chechen rebel commander in a brazen assassination.
Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was detained in Yekaterinburg in March 2023 and convicted in July. He was accused of spying. The U.S. had denounced the trial as a sham. Gershkovich was recently sentenced to 16 years in jail. Meanwhile, former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan was working as a corporate security executive from the U.S. when detained in Moscow in 2018. He too was accused of espionage. Whelan and the U.S. government have denied the charges, and the detention was a source of tension between both the countries.
I spent a lot of time with the families of Evan and Paul and Alsu. Most of the time, as you can imagine, those are tough conversations, but not today. Today, excuse me, today was a very good day, and we're going to build on it, drawing inspiration and continued courage from it for all of those who are held hostage or wrongfully detained around the world.
This comes as the U.S. president also sang happy birthday to the released Russian-American journalist Alsu Kumarsheva's daughter.
You all know we have a tradition in the Biden family. We sing happy birthday on any birthday. You ready? All of you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miriam. Happy birthday to you.
The White House also said that it had been working on a deal to free the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who passed away in February this year. Navalny was found dead in a Russian prison nestled in western Siberia. U.S. Vice President and presidential contestant Kamala Harris revealed that the exchange includes the release of political prisoners who worked with Navalny.
This is the first prisoner exchange between Russia and the West since 2022. When star U.S. basketball player Brittany Griner was swapped for convicted Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. It is also the biggest exchange since 2010, when 14 alleged spies were exchanged between Russia and the West.
Well, reacting to the prisoner exchange, the United Nations welcomed the release of 24 detainees released. NATO hailed the work of allies coming together for the prisoner swap. Germany said the release of Vadim Krasikov, a Russian convicted of a murder in 2019 of a former Chechen militant in Berlin, was not an easy decision.
According to analysts, the prisoner exchange, it's the biggest since the Cold War. It was a bigger deal than they had expected.
It's also important to point out the moral asymmetry in the type of prisoners that have been released. On the Russian side, it's cyber hackers, sleeper agents, and in one case, a prisoner who was convicted of murder in Germany and was serving a life sentence. On the side of prisoners being released from Russia, it's primarily journalists, human rights activists, and anti-war protesters. So the moral quality of the types of groups that are being released is quite different in both cases.
And our correspondent Susan Tehrani explains to us as to what this major prisoner exchange reveals to us about the current state of US-Russia ties. Take a listen.
Russia has released Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gersovich, who the U.S. says was wrongfully accused of espionage as part of a large prisoner swap with the United States and Europe. Gersovich, along with other Americans, was exchanged for Russians held here in the United States as well as Europe, including a convicted murderer. The swap, involving 24 prisoners in at least 6 countries, was negotiated over several months and is considered the largest and most complex East-West prisoner swap since the Cold War. U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed the release, saying, quote, "They are safe, free, and have begun their journeys back into the arms of their families." The deal highlights the challenges of dealing with countries like Russia that the West says uses detention as a tool of leverage and raises concerns about encouraging further detentions. The U.S. has pursued several large prisoner swaps with countries that it considers hostile, including Venezuela and Iran, despite criticism that such deals may encourage the arrest of more Americans.
Susan further elucidates on the significance of Biden's outreach to leaders of certain NATO nations following the swap. Listen to this.
President Joe Biden's calls with these leaders acknowledges the important role they played in facilitating this complex prisoner exchange, which involved 24 people and 7 nations. While the swap is seen as a diplomatic success, President Biden also hoped that it would be a legacy-defining moment for him. Addressing the nation shortly after the Americans were released and the swap was successful, he said what transpired proved that global alliances do matter. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre made sure to mention that Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, played a critical role in this diplomacy at a number of moments leading to the prisoner exchange. Harris, of course, is the Democratic presidential challenger against former President Donald Trump.
Moving on, former U.S. President Donald Trump's lawyers have asked the judge overseeing Trump's trial on hush money case to step aside,
claiming that the judge has indirect ties to the Vice President Kamala Harris, who's poised to become the Democratic nominee in the November 5th election. In a court filing dated the 31st of July, which was made public on the 1st of August, Trump's lawyers said that the consulting firm Authentic, where Judge Juan Merchan's daughter works, has ties with Harris's 2020 presidential campaign.
We have a judge who's highly conflicted. You know what the confliction is. Nobody wants to write about it, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. If I do, he said, I get put in jail. So we'll play that game a little bit longer. We won't talk about it.
Monsoon rejected a similar recusal request by Trump on April 15 before the jury selection, and also a request in 2023 after an ethics panel found that his daughter's work did not pose questions about his impartiality.
Meanwhile, a New York State appeals court has rejected Donald Trump's challenge to a gag order in his hush money criminal case, which means that the Republican presidential nominee cannot comment publicly about individual prosecutors and others in the case until Justice Juan Merchan sentences him on the 18th of September.
Well, the political future of Venezuela is anything but clear. As the incumbent Nicolas Maduro grips onto power, the opposition is now preparing to snatch it from him. Here's a detailed report. Take a look.
Hasta la victoria siempre.
And they know what has happened.
Venezuela is scrambling to contain post-election uncertainty in the country. The incumbent, Nicolas Maduro, claimed victory for another term, but the election result is deemed as contested. Many world leaders have raised questions on the accuracy of the election result. The US is mulling fresh sanctions against the country. The opposition claims its candidate Edmundo Gonzalez secured more than twice the number of votes than Maduro. But the incumbent has not stayed silent. Venezuela's president publicly issued a statement saying that his Socialist Party is ready to disclose all vote tallies. He demanded that all parties do the same.
The Great Patriotic Poll and the United Socialist Party of Venezuela are ready to present 100% of the electoral tallies in our hands, and I hope the electoral chamber asks the same from every other candidate and party.
Ever since both sides claimed victory, protesters have stormed the country. Opposition supporters clashed with the police demanding that vote tallies be released. The post-poll violence has cooled down for now. An eerie, uneasy calm prevails, but it seems momentary. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has issued a fresh mobilization call. She asked supporters to collect the win. Many have looked at the opposition's conduct as a coup attempt. Maduro has blamed the United States for backing the chaos. The president slammed Washington for stirring the pot. He pointed the finger at social media barons Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk for generating fear among Venezuelans.
People were outraged. People were alarmed by what they saw on all the social networks and all the social networks that Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and TikTok had set up to spread violence. Elon Musk, let's fight. But you come here to the polyhedron arena and it's you and me. If I beat you, Elon Musk, I'll accept your invitation to go to Mars. But you must come with me.
The first 2 days of the protests in Venezuela killed at least 16 people. Hundreds have been arrested and detained. As the political standoff persists, Venezuela's economic crisis has been pushed to the back burner. When the dust settles, the last leader standing will have a mountain of domestic and diplomatic challenges to overcome. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And Nigeria is on the edge. Thousands have been protesting across the country against the high cost of living and poor governance.
And reports now say that at least 3 demonstrators have lost their lives in Kaduna State. Nationwide demonstrations have erupted against the Nigerian government in Abuja, the commercial capital Lagos, and several other cities. Demonstrators, mostly young people, are showing their discontent against the economic reforms. Nigerian police and angry demonstrators have clashed violently in several parts of the country.
Carrying placards, bells and Nigeria's green and white flag, protesters met with heavy security presence. Several roads were blocked either by placard-carrying protesters or armed security personnel deployed overnight after days of mobilization for the protests.
And we are not going to stop until every Nigerian can live comfortably in Nigeria. We are not going to stop until we in Nigeria, we Nigerians living in Nigeria, enjoy similar life or a better life than even countries across the world who don't have half of the resources that we have.
High drama unfolded in the northern city of Kano and capital city Abuja as Nigerian police fired tear gas to disperse the demonstrators. In Kano, the country's second largest city, demonstrators have set the gatehouse of the Nigerian Communications Commission on fire there. Police responded with tear gas, forcing back most of the demonstrators.
Are you sure this is what I'm going to do?
In Abuja, security forces blocked off roads leading to Eagle Square, one of the planned protest sites, while several hundred protesters gathered at the nearby National Stadium before marching towards the square.
Africa's most populous country is struggling with rising inflation and a sharply devalued naira after President Bola Tinubu ended a costly fuel subsidy and liberalized the currency a year ago to improve the economy. Many Nigerians are struggling with high cost, with food inflation at 40% and fuel prices having tripled.
We will remain on the street till our demand is being. Hunger has brought me out. Insecurity has brought me out. Poor housing has brought me out. A lot of things that is going on in this country. We can't just keep quiet as a nation. I'm advising every one of us to come out and exercise our fundamental right as a people.
Amid the escalating protests, the Nigerian government has urged young activists to reject rallies and allow time for Tinubu's reforms to take hold and improve the economy.
Day one of the nationwide protest aimed at ending perceived bad governance in Nigeria held across the country against all odds. The protest, which started peacefully in the early hours, turned violent in some states as looting, arson, violence, gunshots, explosions and use of tear gas, even death, have been reported in some states. This has led to curfew being imposed by the government of Kano State, Yobe, and even Borno State, the homestead of the Vice President Shetima, while Niger State is likely to follow suit. So far, no tension have been reported in the eastern part of the country. It seems calm as at the time of compiling this report, while very less tension was also recorded in some parts of Lagos State. Now, officials earlier warned of possible escalation of the protest by those with sinister motives as the government's last-minute interventions to end the protest failed. Fingers are crossed if the protest will continue on Friday or be shelved, as the plan earlier was a 10-day protest with loads of demands by the organizers from the President Tinubu-led government. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani, WION, World is One.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, we'll get you a story from the US where the H-1B visa lottery scheme, US's biggest foreign worker employment policy, is being manipulated and exploited by staffing and outsourcing companies. This according to an explosive report released by the Bloomberg.
Also on the other side, US mulls restrictions on China's ability to import AI memory chips. We'll get you all on this on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
This week on Tech It Out, we explain how well Microsoft's AI chatbot Copilot performs. We tell you about romantic partners powered by artificial intelligence and find out if electric passenger planes could revolutionize domestic travel. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show. Let's get started with the headlines first.
Reports say Iran and its armed groups prepare coordinated action to deter Israel, averting an all-out war after killings of top Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. Iranian officials met in Tehran to discuss retaliation.
Joe Biden speaks with Netanyahu and discusses efforts to defend Israel against Iran and its proxies. White House announces new military deployments to support Israel's defense against threats.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris expected to meet Americans freed from Russian custody when they arrive in the United States. Both the leaders will travel to the joint base Andrews to greet them.
Trump pushes again for hush money case against judge to recuse himself, citing his daughter's work for Vice President Kamala Harris. Justice Juan Merchant previously denied recusal request by Trump's lawyers.
The United States recognizes Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's opponent and opposition contestant Edmundo Gonzalez as the winner of the country's disputed presidential election, rejecting Maduro's claim of victory.
Indian badminton icon PV Sindhu's hopes of winning a medal at the third straight Olympics are over after losing to China's He Binjiao in the round of 16. Monsoon mayhem wreaked havoc in parts of India, China and Pakistan, from northern states of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand to southern state of Kerala. Torrential rain has triggered landslides, claiming hundreds of lives.
With normal life thrown out of gear, Pakistan and China have witnessed record rainfall this year. Our next report will tell you how these countries have been battling full-scale devastation all this while. Take a look.
Monsoon mayhem grips parts of southern and eastern Asia. India, China and Pakistan are battling record rains this year. In India's God's own country, Kerala, hopes of finding more survivors in deadly landslides have been fading. The scenic Wayanad villages have almost wiped out.
There were more than 400 houses in this area. Now only 30 are left. This was a very beautiful place. I used to visit here many times. My friend had 3 houses here. Now there is nothing left. We are finding bodies that have lost limbs. Sometimes we find only limbs.
Steady rain and lack of road access to affected areas have hampered rescue work. Authorities are also taking necessary steps to prevent the spreading of an epidemic at different relief camps.
So we have moved troops from all over South India, from Trivandrum, from Calicut, from Kannur and from Bangalore, using aircraft as well as by road.
Now in less than 48 hours, the Indian Army has managed to build a bridge that is completely sort of safe for vehicles to traverse. You can bring in ambulances, you can bring in reasonably heavy vehicles. All of these vehicles can traverse on the large bridge you see there, the one that has a netted structure on the green color bridge. That's known as a Bailey's Bridge. It can be assembled in very less time, and the Army has shown that they can put together a bridge like this. This is a serious display of their engineering talent amid the most harshest of conditions.
In northern India, cloudbursts triggered landslides in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand have claimed dozens of lives. Several pilgrims are feared stranded at the pilgrimage site in Kedarnath. There seems no relief in Pakistan. Its second largest city, Lahore, has come to a grinding halt. Torrential rains have flooded streets and houses, causing massive power outages and traffic disruptions. The rains in Lahore have surpassed July 1980 record. Heavy rains have swept northeast China's Heilongjiang province. While rural areas have submerged, several parts of Changchun remain waterlogged. Are these vagaries of climate or caused by unchecked human onslaught? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And now to the world of business. A Bloomberg report has exposed shocking unfair practices and how outsourcing and staffing companies are gaming the H-1B visa program.
Well, according to the latest data, tech labor outsourcing firms exploit flaws in the visa lottery system, widely known as the H-1B program. And as a result, US businesses and skilled immigrants are losing out. Take a look at our next report as we deep dive into this.
The United States government holds a lottery in April that influences the future of the country and the lives of hundreds of thousands of people looking to work in the US. This is a lottery system for the H-1B visa, which is reserved for highly qualified workers. Competition for spots is fierce among tech companies, startups, banks, and pharmaceutical firms. These firms want to recruit high-skilled workers and overseas students from elite US colleges who would otherwise have to leave the nation. New data reveals that the game is rigged. A Bloomberg report shows how thousands of companies gained an unfair edge by getting extra tickets for the lottery. 446,000 individuals appeared for H-1B visas in 2023. But legally, there could be no more than 85,000. Amazon, Intel, and JP Morgan are just a few of the well-known companies that hired some of the lucky winners. Some visas went to businesses that catered to a different demographic. International outsourcing firms received almost 11,600 visas. These firms got an unfair advantage in the lottery system. Outsourcing firms leveraged their large offshore workforces to submit more applications than anybody else. Tech staffing agencies got 22,600 H-1B visas. Outsourcing and staffing firms received roughly half of the H-1B visas. According to Bloomberg's findings, a large number of them engaged in widespread cheating by submitting many entries for the same worker. Congress established the H-1B program to assist American companies gain access to the world's most talented individuals. However, the program has been skewed due to the disproportionate influence of these enterprises. The risk of undercutting American labor has increased. This is because outsourcing and staffing firms hire people with less impressive backgrounds and offer them cheaper compensation. As a result, a small group of middlemen get rich while US workers, the economy, and skilled immigrants are all let down. Fights in Washington over border security and illegal migration have long cast a shadow over the country's skilled worker visa program. There is a lot of money at risk, though. For every 10 H-1B visas that prominent US multinational firms fail to get, 9 jobs are transferred overseas. This is based on the research conducted in 2023 by the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. According to an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, the economic loss would be around $86 billion from a 10% decline in highly qualified immigrant workers. Business Bureau report, WION World is One.
All right, now we look at the growing tensions between the United States and China in the AI race. The United States is mulling restrictions on China's ability to import artificial intelligence memory chips.
And also the machinery which is needed to manufacture them as early as next month. This would further intensify the already fierce AI competition between the world's largest economies. Our next report telling you more.
A Bloomberg report quoting sources show the U.S. rules are designed to prevent China's access to the so-called high-bandwidth memory chips. When it comes to HBM, US-based Micron Technology, South Korea's leading memory chip maker SK Hynix, and Samsung Electronics rule the world. NVIDIA and Advanced Micro Devices, AI accelerators, among others, require advanced HBM chips to operate. If the rule is imposed, China will find it difficult to procure them. While the US can control American firms, the real question is, can the US impose restrictions on South Korean companies? One option for the US is to use a foreign direct product rule. This will allow the government to regulate goods manufactured outside the country that have some trace of American technology. SK Hynix and Samsung for chip design depend on US-based firms Applied Materials and Cadence Design Systems. The new rules will likely be unveiled by the end of August as part of a larger package against China. This includes sanctions on more than 120 Chinese companies and new limitations on different kinds of chip, equipment, and machinery.
However, the package will also include some exemptions for important allies such as Japan, the Netherlands, and South Korea. Washington is likely to back-channel with these countries to restrict China's access. American businesses would be the primary targets of the new rules. For some of NVIDIA's processors, a less powerful AI accelerator has been approved for Chinese enterprises, which Samsung provides. However, it is not clear if the new rules will limit the sale of those AI accelerators to China. China currently lacks in AI memory chip capability. Beijing is trying to increase its ability to be self-sufficient in light of the stricter US restrictions. Chinese firm Huawei Technologies currently offers an alternative to NVIDIA and AMD products. The question of who provides Huawei with AI memory chips and the machinery remains unanswered, and will that come under scrutiny remains to be seen. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now take a look at all the news from the world of technology. The US is mulling unilateral restrictions on China's access to AI memory chips, such as those made by Micron Technology and SK Hynix. According to reports, the measures are meant to prevent Micron Technology and South Korea's SK Hynix and Samsung from supplying Chinese firms with high bandwidth memory chips. The question is why, you might wonder, because these chips are essential in helping run complex generative AI programs. It's as of now unclear what authority the US would use to restrict the South Korean firms. While the new measures would curb direct sales of such advanced chips to Chinese companies, it's also unclear whether selling high-end memory chips bundled together with AI accelerators to China would be permissible or not.
The European Union's landmark law on artificial intelligence has come into force. Brussels vows it will drive innovation while protecting citizens' rights. Earlier this year, the EU adopted the world's first sweeping rules to govern AI, especially powerful systems like OpenAI's ChatGPT, after difficult, intense negotiations. Although the rules were first proposed in 2021, they took on greater urgency when ChatGPT burst onto the scene in 2022.
United States Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian has revealed that the recent IT outage cost the company $500 million. The outage led to the cancellation of over 5,000 flights until July 25th. The disruption was caused by a failed software update from CrowdStrike, which affected thousands of Microsoft systems globally. This made it difficult for Delta systems to coordinate flight crews with aircraft, leading to further delays. Bastian stated that Delta intends to seek damages from CrowdStrike and Microsoft for the disruptions to protect their shareholders, customers, employees, and also the company's reputation.
All right, moving on now. Algerian boxer Iman Khalif has sparked off a huge controversy at the Paris Games. The 25-year-old who failed the International Boxing Association's gender test was declared the winner after her opponent, Italy's Angela Carini, claimed injustice and abandoned the fight after just 46 seconds.
Well, the row has drawn a strong reaction from Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Khalif has been in the spotlight since being disqualified by the International Boxing Association before a gold medal match at the 2023 World Championships in New Delhi. She was disqualified for failing to pass the gender eligibility test that stops athletes with XY chromosomes to compete in women's events. But the boxing events at the Paris Games are conducted by the International Olympic Committee, who allowed Khalif to compete despite a huge backlash.
The power difference between Khalif and Carini in the round of 16 bout was quite evident. The Italian was punched in the nose and shortly after that signaled to her corner that she could not continue. The match was stopped and the referee declared Khalif As the winner, Carini ignored the Algerian before she plunged to her knees and burst into tears. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said that the fight was not on equal footing.
Carini spoke to the reporters after a match, and I'm quoting as to what she said. "I put an end to the match because after the second blow, after years of experience in the ring and a life of fighting, I felt a strong pain in my nose. You all saw my nose that started bleeding. I did not lose tonight. I just surrendered with maturity. I'm a mature woman. The ring is my life," unquote. Khalif is not the only person who failed a gender test and is participating at the Paris Games. Taiwan's Lin Yao-ting was stripped of a bronze medal at last year's World Championships as well. Ting begins her fight in Paris on Friday. On Wednesday, the IBA said Khalif and Ting were disqualified at the World Championships, and I'm quoting here, "to uphold the level of fairness and utmost integrity of the competition," unquote.
This had been applied, and of course we had the result, which came out that both boxers were ineligible for our tournaments. Quite a lengthy process, and I know it's been a while now. So, but of course, end state to that is that these two boxers are not allowed to box within IBA. So I find it remarkable how the IOC apply a different condition to this event.
The testosterone is not a perfect test. Many women can have testosterone which is in what would be called male levels, and still be women and still compete as women. So this panacea, this idea that suddenly you do one test for testosterone and that sorts everything out, not the case, I'm afraid. But each sport needs to deal with its issues. They know their sports and their disciplines the best, and you need to target and tailor, I should say, the testing and so on with that.
Scientific research suggests those who have undergone male puberty have 162% greater punching power than females. This just isn't about sport. It's also a matter of life and death. And Carini's shocked reaction after being punched is a warning for those administering sport. The IOC is proud of Paris being gender equal games, but the incident on Thursday is a blot on the fairness of competition. In Paris, this is Digvijay Singh for WION.
Well, the Paris Games has thrown up many fairy tale stories, and one of them is that of Swapnil Kusale. The 29-year-old created history as he became the first Indian to win a medal in the 50-meter three positions event.
Kusale spoke to WION sports editor Digvijay Singh on his journey from a small village in the Indian state of Maharashtra to the Olympic podium. Listen to this.
Swapnil, many congratulations. You're a veteran in a sense of Indian shooting because you're participating in the Indian team along with all these youngsters. But that Olympic medal round your neck must be making you feel very young at the moment.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the congratulations, and it is feeling proud to be Indian and to win the bronze medal for the Olympics for the country.
You have waited a long time, Swapnil, for this, haven't you? You've been around the sport for so long, but has that weight now enhanced what you're feeling? Is that added to the feeling of celebration?
Yeah, right, sir. I've been started shooting since it's been 14 years, and I did everything what needed to shoot, to perfect shooting, and we can say good shooting. And the hard work pays right now, and it's I'm proud to be to win the medal for the India.
Yes, not just are you proud, you've made an entire country proud. All of India is celebrating Swapnil Kusale and the Indian shooting team at the moment. In fact, a couple of days ago, Swapnil, I met you at the Chateau station. Yeah. And what sort of struck me was how calm you were. You were buying groceries. What struck me was how calm you were ahead of your competition. Are you still calm after winning the medal, or you much more happier now? Pissed off all of that is happening?
No, sir, I'm calm right now as usual. Just here, winning is different and playing game is different. So my like normal life and everything is like normally the calm list, and I don't like to overact everything. So it just calm right now.
Swapnil, when you win an Olympic medal, everything is forgotten. Everyone is celebrating, but the struggles you had to sort of go through. You were very close to making the team for the 2020 Olympics as well. So how would you look back at your journey leading up to this Olympic medal?
Journey is quite difficult, but not to say like सब कुछ difficult है. So everyone is there with me, like Federation, Sai and India and my parents, everyone is with me to support me. So at the particular time पे काफी support मिलने के बाद काफी चीजें change भी हो गई and converted to the like good shooting, and that's makes like shooting अच्छे से करना and to present India in Olympics.
Boston natives Matt Damon and Casey Affleck returned to their old stomping grounds for the new film, The Instigators. More about the star-studded premiere in this next story. We leave you with this report. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Do you want to fix things with your son?
Couldn't look him in the eye. Mortgage, back child support, that's on me.
Rory, are you sure you've tried everything?
Not everything.
I think Boston, I think when we started shooting there on like Good Will Hunting, it seemed like an unexpected place to put a movie because not a lot of movies shot there. And now a lot of movies shoot there. And so I think people have caught on to the kind of sarcasm and the sensibility and that, of Boston.
You the Marine?
Yeah.
You the ex-con?
Yeah, I did time, but you only got to cast aspersions at me, guy. Go. Good. Stop talking.
No alcohol detected.
Boston is a great place to make movies, not only because they have that tax incentive and they have a great crews and stuff, but it's also can be a very, very distinct city, like a place with a lot of character. It's rich in history, architecture, all those things that are like immediately apparent on screen. But it also can be a kind of anywhere city if that's how you want to film it.
The mayor is going to be holding a party on election night. And there's going to be money there, like none of you bums ever seen.
It's your first job?
I know what I'm doing.
A little late for a career change, ain't it? You're 60?
Quick question. If I'm giving instructions and they're not doing them,
Just say, I have a gun. I wanted to do a comedy, and no one was really willing to give me a comedy. I think that probably I'd never been that funny before, so they were like, nah, it wasn't like I wasn't the first stop. I found a script that Chuck McLean had written that was very, very similar. It was set in Boston, and he wasn't doing anything with it, and I said, I'm going to unpack this thing and see what I can do. What are you doing?
taking notes.
Taking notes on a criminal conspiracy. Get down on the floor! Get on the floor! Tie him up! You got like 6 zip ties, genius. I have a gun!
I would say Instigators is a comedy. I mean, it's an action comedy, but, from day one, I really wanted to define it as a comedy, and because Matt Damon and I go back to Bourne Identity, and people are like, oh, are they doing like another Bourne? It's like, no, this is us doing something, like equally fun, if not more fun, but in a very different lane. So I would say first and foremost a comedy.
You walk out with me.
But I'm their hostage. And their psychiatrist.
You're underpaid.
Yeah, no shit.
Massive turning point in the West Asia conflict. Israel opens Iran war front. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh killed in Tehran, a targeted attack during a visit to Iran for the new president's inauguration. Nearly 2,000 kilometers away in Beirut, Israel kills a top Hezbollah commander in a targeted strike. West Asia on the boil, war clouds darken, and the threat of a wider conflict grows bigger than ever.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Welcome back to WION World is One. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Hem Kaur Saroy, and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking at this hour. Defending champion Alexander Zverev has been knocked out of the Paris Olympics after losing to Italian Lorenzo Musetti in the quarterfinals, while top seed Novak Djokovic reached the semi-finals despite a knee injury. Joe Biden speaks with Netanyahu and discusses efforts to defend Israel against Iran and its proxies. White House announces new military deployments to support Israel's defense against threats. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris expected to meet Americans freed from Russian custody when they arrive in the United States. Both leaders to travel to joint base Andrews to greet them. Trump pushes again for hush money case judge to recuse himself, citing his daughter's work for Vice President Kamala Harris. Justice Juan Merchant previously denied recusal request by Trump's lawyers. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado in hiding after being threatened with arrest, calls for protests in every city on Saturday to denounce disputed re-election of President Maduro.